Hi, greetings, and we are here in Clearwater, Florida, which is close to Spring Hill, Florida, the pigeon capital of the United States. And I have the opportunity to interview one of the most famous, a celebrity in the racing pigeon sport, well known in the entire country and even in other countries like South Africa and Europe. And I am being humbled to have this opportunity to meet Mr. Frank McLaughlin. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for having me. This will be fun.
To interview Mr. Frank McLaughlin. Well, so many people know that you are from Boston, Massachusetts.
Yes.
So what happened? Why did I meet you here in Florida?
Well, the plan was when my son went to college that we were going to leave Massachusetts, maybe go south. And so he went to college, but luckily we liked the Tampa area, outside of Spring Hill, around that area. So he ended up going to the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, which was perfect for us.
Okay.
So, and then our 24-year-old got a job in Tampa. So both kids are here just by luck almost. And so we'll all be here as a family again.
Nice.
So it's good. It's working out.
So you've been here before already?
We visited a lot, mainly going to Spring Hill events.
Okay.
And my wife has made some friends, and we've have other friends that are planning on moving down. But mainly over the years going to the Gulf Coast Classic, and she became comfortable with the area. She liked, outside of Tampa. So we're looking at houses, not necessarily, in Spring Hill, but outside of Spring Hill.
Okay. So you moved here in Florida. My question is, you're going to be permanent here?
Yes, this will be our home. At least we're committed through his education. We're going to stay at least through my son is finished with school, and then we'll reevaluate.
Correct.
After that. I mean, always loved Florida ever since I was a kid. When I came down here, the flora and the fauna, I like to fish, and it's peaceful for me, even though I rarely catch anything, it seems. But yeah, so we'll be permanently here, and the next step will be the pigeons.
Well, actually, I already read the Racing Pigeon Digest, and thank you to Mr. Jean Yois for giving me also the opportunity to write articles in the Racing Pigeon Digest. And I believe you see that, some of my articles.
Absolutely.
For the military veterans. So I already read your story and the detail of the story, but we have some viewers from the Philippines, from Europe, from South Africa. Would you believe that? We have viewers in our channel that, of course, haven't read the opportunity to read that story. So I would like to ask the questions that have been asked in that magazine. So how did you start with the racing pigeon?
Well, one story I've never told. I've been interviewed a lot.
Not even in the Pigeon Digest?
Nope.
Not yet.
And I usually start my pigeon journey later.
Okay.
But when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I feel pigeons for some reason, excuse me, they're in our blood or in our genetics.
Okay.
So when I was 4 or 5 years old, my aunt had a cottage on a lake about half an hour from where I lived, and we used to go down on the weekends. And it was getting dark one afternoon, and at the time 2 red checks circled and landed on her house.
Okay.
And I saw those the first time I had ever seen red check pigeons. I didn't know what they were. I knew they were pigeons, but I was just a little kid. They flew down to the lake, and they both took a drink, and then they flew off.
Okay.
And to this day, I remember it vividly. That was my first exposure. I didn't know what they were.
That's your first encounter.
Yeah. Now, years later, I realized they were racing pigeons, probably flying. It was, late, may have been a 500 or 600 mile race in June. And they stopped, they drank, and they moved on. So that stuck in my head from the first time, I saw those pigeons. I had seen wild pigeons. I never saw a red checker before. So then, my father, he loved birds, so we had chickens in the city. And one day we were visiting farms. I could keep hens, and we were visiting farms, and they had a pair of white fantail pigeons.
Okay.
So I liked them, and my father bought me a pair, and then they reproduced in my chicken coop. They were I thought they were nesting like 10 foot up, but they were probably 6 foot up, and I couldn't see what was, but I had like a dozen after a few years.
And we're talking in Massachusetts,
In
right?
Massachusetts,
Okay.
yeah, in Quincy. I grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts.
Not that crowded yet before.
Well, it was a city.
It's
it was
a city
still a
already.
city. We had a 50 by 100 foot lot.
Okay.
My father had bird dogs. We had a kennel, and it was an old garage that I had my chickens in, and he had all kinds of stuff. My dad was like, he should have been born in the 1800s. He was a real outdoorsman.
Yeah.
So the pigeons kept reproducing, and then one day I said, well, all these pigeons are overtaking my chicken coop, so I let 3 or 4 of them out.
Okay.
And they went from house to house all around the neighborhood, and then after a couple hours they flew back and landed in the yard, and I opened the door to the chicken coop and they walked in, and I couldn't believe it. So my father came home from work and I told him the story, and he said, oh, I know a guy with homing pigeons, you might like those. So I was probably 10 years old at that time. I had the fantails for maybe 3 or 4 years. We visited, I saw the nests and the red checkers and the clock, and that was it. Within like a week, we gave the chickens away, we got pigeons, and the rest is history. I've been doing pigeons ever since. And most in the sport think it was my dad that started. But my father, he never held a pigeon in his life. Like he couldn't, for 50 years, he still couldn't hold a bird.
Yeah.
And so it was always me. I managed the birds. He helped me because, I'm a kid, but he helped a lot. But yeah, and then that was it. We started with the birds.
So when did you start racing in the club?
So I got serious in 73. We got our first breeding pigeons. So in 74 was my first, 1974 was my first season racing.
And you are assisted by your father that time, right?
Yeah, he would help me. I mean, he would train the birds.
Okay.
He would, drive to the club. And my mother and father, I mean, they both gave up a lot, because once I got involved with the pigeons, I gave up sports, like all the stuff that I was interested as a kid. I was just all pigeons all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't wait to get home from school and get with the pigeons.
Saving your allowance for the feeds.
Yeah.
And everything.
Well, luckily he bought the feed. And,
Okay.
my father was my family was great, very supportive mother.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's what I'm about to say, that your parents supports you with your hobby. And do you remember what is the club's name?
Yes, we joined the Braintree Racing Pigeon Club, and I'm still a member of that club today. It's changed, over the years, where I moved and I raced out of the Plymouth Racing Pigeon Club, and I raced out of the Rhode Island Racing Pigeon Club. But I'm back racing in the Braintree Racing Pigeon Club, the club I started with. And that club combined with the Norwood Racing Pigeon Club, because the Norwood had a nice clubhouse. So yeah, I'm still in, my brother will continue. He's interested in the sport, luckily. So he's going to keep birds in Massachusetts and race in Braintree, and I'm going to keep and just breed birds in Florida.
Of course, when we just started, you and me, when we just started the racing, having pigeon, we are not particular with the pedigree.
Right.
Right? We are not, as long as the bird has wings and, nice swaddle, nice eyes and everything, nice color.
Yeah.
We are into that pigeon.
It's true, and that was the mistake I made early on, because I ran the show, and I thought it was beautiful pigeons and all handler. I didn't know how much of a difference the actual bird made. You needed good pigeons.
The strain, we're not particular with the strain before.
So I was a little kid. My dad, though, he was into hunting dogs, and he competed in field trials where they compete with bird dogs, and he always tried to buy the best bloodline, like out of champion. So he had a different mindset, young, like I didn't realize, and he wanted to apply it to the pigeons early on. And I probably held us back a little bit, because he knew, unless you have the animal, it's hard to compete.
When did you start being particular with the pedigree, with the strains?
Well, everything, when I was 16, no, I was before that. So when I was 15 years old, I fell in love with a pigeon. Going backwards a little bit, we trapped in a bird.
Okay.
And we looked it up, and it was a gold band futurity bird. And I looked up the bird, and the gold band race was only like 2 weeks before, a big futurity race, and it had won the race. So this winner of a big race was in my loft. So we contacted.
That you trapped?
Yeah, we trapped it in. So we called the breeder, and he was thrilled because you know this bird just won 1,000 birds.
It's an ace bird.
Yeah, he was a beautiful red checker hen. He invited us over. Well, when I went there, he had one male bird that I fell in love with. It was a Fabry bird, and it was a dark checker with a single white flight. And I loved the bird. I couldn't believe it. I had to have.
You handled it. You liked the.
Yeah, he was just something. Even when I was a little kid, I could look at pigeons and see greatness. Like I could walk into somebody's loft at 15, 16, 17, and at the time, everyone didn't have good pigeons. They might have had a one or two.
Okay.
So it was easy to pick the best.
So it's natural with you, like you know.
Yeah, it came easy. So I saw this pigeon. I loved the pigeon, and I couldn't believe it. So a year goes by, and it's right before Christmas, and I said to my dad, I said, I'd really like to try to buy that bird because we kept visiting. And my father, he said, well, we'll offer him $100 right before Christmas.
Okay.
Because he might take that.
Yeah.
And so that was the fall of '77. So he offered him $100. He took it. I got the bird. And that first year we bred him. He bred the big gold band futurity winner. It was almost 800 lofts. 800 birds, almost 100 lofts. I had this bird, and my father would let me bet one bird every race.
Wow.
And it was bet all the way across this cock that won this futurity. So that's what it started with this I had a great pigeon. His children won, his grandchildren won. And that also caused me to start selecting for super feathered, super buoyant corky pigeons. Because that pigeon weighed nothing. You could hold him, and he was weightless. There was no body weight to the bird. And his children were weightless, and his grandchildren were weightless, very buoyant. Beautiful, soft, silky feather. So then, just because that's what I was doing well with, that's what I started to select for. I started, when I brought in a bird, it had to be like that bird on my birds. Where everybody else at the time, not everybody, but most were racing these big boned, showy type, Sions, Stassard, real head. The old families back then, a lot of them were the Heitzman Sions or the Stassard bloodlines, and but they were a big boned, very showy bird. And my birds were a medium type, very corky, very buoyant type birds. So that alone propelled me, to the top. And by 18, I had it figured out. I was winning. At 18, it started to take off for me.
And $100 back in the day is like a huge amount of money.
Yeah, I think my father, he didn't make any money. He was like in charge of the trees in the city of Quincy. He didn't even have that position at that time.
Okay.
And it was a lot of money.
Yeah. And so that bird already has a pedigree, or?
Yeah, that bird was bred by Ken Schwartz. He was a breeder in Davenport, Iowa. So Ken bred the bird. It came with a beautiful pedigree. I guess it was my first pedigreed pigeon. It was just, he typed it out actually at the time. And nice pedigree, but really, really good pigeons. I was very limited for space.
Okay.
And after the first year, we tore down the old garage, and my father built me a 12-foot it was 16 by 8.
Okay.
16 by 8-foot pigeon loft. I had young birds, old birds, and a little breeding section. And then by a couple years later, I wanted to start racing widowhood. So he added a 4-foot by 16-foot section on the back. So my loft was 12 by 16. I had breeders in the back. I had a corner for the widow hens and my young birds. I had a team of natural pigeons that I had like 10 widow cock birds.
Okay.
And that's when it all, like 1981, and that's when I really took off. I started, I was racing against, say, almost 250 lofts, 3,000 birds a week with a small team, and constantly at the top, winning average speeds and, all kinds of awards.
My question, did you keep the bloodline of that cock bird that you,
yeah,
until now?
So everything at that time, everything pretty much I was winning with were children and grandchildren of that one bird.
Okay.
Like that's when I realized that they're not all equal. Some birds are just better than others. And the good ones, you know, for everyone out there, the good ones show themselves fast. You don't have to breed them 3 years to try to get a good pigeon or breed their children. And the good ones usually, you know, you'll breed 2 or 3 youngsters and a couple will hit right off the bat. So they showed them, and he was so good. So at that time, I realized, and my dad realized, what a difference the pigeons make. And then we contacted a broker that was working with Jermaine Imbreck.
Okay. I know Jermaine.
What was that bird, in 83. So we got our Imbreck pigeons in 83, and I got a super breeder from Jermaine Imbreck.
He was still really active that time.
Yeah, he was still excellent. He had his big wins through the late 70s, mid 70s, late 70s, when he was probably at his best. And I got this mealy Imbreck. I call them the old Imbreck cock, but what a bird.
Going back to that statement that you said that, you know, you bred the you know, that champion bird, the cock bird, kids and everything, but you know, sometimes they didn't provide the result that you're expecting, right? So it just justified the saying that not because you are son of Michael Jordan, you will produce Michael Jordan, but you have the genes of Michael Jordan. So what can you say about that?
Well, I think in all my years of breeding, your odds are better. If you're breeding from close up to the champion pigeons, the odds of breeding a champion is better. And I have found, and I did it with my, like that Imbreck pigeon, I crossed him into those Fabry-based pigeons, so they exploded. They were incredible. I had those birds, one big group. But if you can pack as many unrelated superstars in the pedigree as possible, like if all the grandparents are champions, unrelated champions, you're better off. I know, and I, you know, step on some toes, but when we were kids, inbreed, line breed, and outcross, the old timers would preach that. You have these inbred pigeons and you breed them for hybrid vigor, and almost every superstar game-changing pigeon the sport has ever known is a total cross. All these champions we read about that are, you know, for 30, 40 years we're talking about them, they were bred from 2 unrelated pigeons. And there's just very few inbred pigeons go on to be superstar breeders. They're always, almost 100%, they're always crosses.
When I'm watching your YouTube channel, because Mr. Frank McLaughlin also have a YouTube channel, and I'm one of your followers, or subscriber, I should say. You always mention about the genetics. Genetics is really important. Can you share something about that information?
Well, I mean, it's genetics, you want top genetics. Like I feel if you got a lot of champions close up in the pedigree, the odds of the stars aligning and you breeding something great is better.
Correct.
Like many people are breeding from, you know, you'll see bred for stock, grandchild of this famous pigeon, great grandchild of that famous pigeon, with no results for generations after generations. When I look at a pedigree, I want to see results, close up results. I don't want to go back just because it's, you know, whatever, a grandchild, a great-grandchild of something, if there's no results in between the great pigeon and that pigeon. So with genetics, I'm looking at, performance genetics, pigeons with good genetics, and also pigeons that the great ones pass it on. And with me, I always look forward. I'm not worried about the great-grandfather superstar pigeon because I know that a bird I have today or breed tomorrow will be the next, will propel me to the future. I look forward. I'm not looking backwards. Everybody's chasing a famous bird from 20 years ago. But you're better off, you know, trying to get that bird from today. And but top genetics helps. You want to get as close to the good pigeons as possible.
Nice.
It makes it easier.
So going back, when you start meeting, or when you started meeting your wife now, is she aware about the pigeon?
Well, yes and no. When I met my wife, I met her, I was 24, and I was in the craze section of my pigeon world. Like, I mean, I lived pigeons. She was 20 when I met her. So we kept in touch over the years. We didn't get married. It was 18 years after I originally met her to when I married her. So, but I always thought about her. When she would come into town, she would call me and I'd see her, and, you know, it was just more of like a long friendship, although I always liked her. I mean, and she liked me, but I didn't think she liked me. I thought she was just being friendly. And I'm a slow starter sometimes with the girls. So I didn't talk about the birds, though. She didn't even know I had pigeons when I was 24, because I didn't bring that up to the, you know, the girls that I wanted to date. It wasn't a good thing for, you know, maybe for relationships, but I was pigeon crazy, you know, through my 20s.
You got that bug.
Yeah. I swear, and I couldn't admit it, but from 10 years old, 11 years old to 30, I don't think there was anything that went through my head other than pigeons. Like, I just thought pigeons all the time. And the next turning point you kind of mentioned, when I was 20, let's see, it was 1987. So I was 62. I went to Belgium. Was it 89? I'm trying to think what year I went to Belgium with Malucci. Might have been 19. It was in the late 80s. Tony Malucci took myself, John Gallagher, Steve Cappellini to Belgium. It was the late 80s. And then I went to the next level. I couldn't believe it. I felt at home. I loved it. I loved Belgium. So after that, I started going to Belgium twice a year. I would go in January and July every year for years until I got married in 2004. Then with the, you know, we had a baby, and it was tough to do much for the first many years. We were living in Oregon. But that's when the lights really went off. Like, I saw these lofts and these birds, and I saw pigeons I saw quality of pigeon that I had never seen in America.
And you thought before that you already seen the best of the best, and then until this time. Yeah,
I really thought that I had great pigeons. I had a couple superstar breeders at the time, and, you know, the one of them was at the end of his life, and the Imbrecht bird was still relatively young. But yeah, when I saw the health and the condition and the quality of those birds, I was like, wow. So that's when I started buying, in the late 80s, I started buying the best from Europe, mainly Belgium. And then my parents, they're awesome. I started pushing, because I wanted to expand. I started pushing them to, like, go to a bigger property.
Still in Massachusetts?
Yeah, still in Massachusetts. So my dad always wanted to live in the country, and they started looking, and I wanted to expand the birds, and my father wanted it also. He wanted to have his bird dogs, and he wanted to live in the country. So he found 6 acres in Hanson, about maybe 25 minutes from Quincy, and he fell in love with it. So the plan was, there was a big giant, it was a garage, it was a Cape house that the guy used for storage. He had a business and a house. So the plan was, I was going to convert the house into my house, and my parents would have their house. I still had my brother and my 2 younger sisters. And then as they got older, I was going to buy the property. They would go into the little house. I would be into the big house. And then that plan got derailed a little bit. That was in 91, we bought that place. I started buying the big homes, and I did that. I lived in a little house on the property and had the birds. That's when I started to really expand. But then in 2003, my wife contacted me again. We started talking, and then we got married in 2005, January 2005, and then I moved to Oregon. Late 2004. So then I had 4 or 5 years in Oregon.
And you left your birds in...
I moved the birds. I moved all the birds to Oregon. Yeah.
So you know Michael Schill?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, Yeah, he's a veteran, and he is a really awesome guy.
Yeah.
From Oregon.
Great guy, yes.
Yeah, great guy. I salute him.
I loved Oregon. We loved it. I loved the nature. I loved the mild climate. And my wife's a snowboarder, so she loved the mountains. And we had our baby out there, and I raced a little bit in Oregon, like a season, maybe a season and a half. But then, my son was born, and it was just too difficult. I was my wife was working days, I was working nights, and we were swapping the the baby off. So it just became rough, and then we ended up moving within Oregon. We opened up a couple fitness centers, and then I didn't have a place to race. I had a nice property for a barn but.
How did you introduce the birds to her?
Well, I think when she got to learn about the pigeons when we started talking. She was living in Oregon. My wife, at 20, she graduated from college here. She went to grad school in California. She got a job with Sealand in California, which sent her to Brazil, which then she got a job for Nike in Brazil, and then Nike transferred her to Oregon, their main headquarters in Beaver Dam, and she was a director, like logistics and supply chain. So when she started talking to me there was the fall of 2003, we talked like all fall. Then she got to know my extent to the pigeons. At that point, I was,
But right off the bat, she doesn't have any against the pigeons, right?
No, she didn't. She didn't realize.
How serious you were.
Yeah, I think she didn't realize how serious I was. She got to see, once we went to Oregon and I set up the barn, and she got to see how serious I was. And she used to say, a lot of times she used to say, if it wasn't for those damn pigeons. Because the pigeons get in the way of things. If you have an event at noontime and the race is supposed to be home at 10 a.m., it's always something's going to go wrong.
Vacation plans.
There's all the race is delayed, you're shipping a different night. And so many quotes were, if it wasn't for those damn pigeons. So I think she was very supportive, and she would care for them if I traveled. But she really appreciated the birds. We moved back to Massachusetts, and she decided to leave the corporate world. And she tells me one day she was thinking about going to nursing school. And I'm there like, nursing school? Like, she's been in business her whole career. She's a big shot.
Totally 180-degree difference.
So she's like, I'm going to do my prereqs and an accelerated nursing program. And I said, do it. I said, don't worry about a thing. Because she knew then she was going to work as a medical assistant. She wasn't going to make any money. I said, don't worry about it. I'll support us with the pigeons. And after that, she had a new appreciation for the pigeons, because she was able to change careers, take a couple years without worrying about making an income. And then I really pushed. I ramped it up. I mean, I was doing the importing business. I was exporting to the $1 million race in South Africa. I mean, I was all out in selling my own birds. So I started really pushing with the pigeons. And I may have sounded, when she said it wasn't for those damn pigeons. It was more of a joking.
Yeah.
She wasn't really. She knew that my love.
Sarcastic
saying that is the word. And she's been great, but yeah, she has been very supportive. And in rare times, she will care for them if she had to. Doesn't enjoy them, doesn't want to play with them or go in the lofts unless she absolutely had to. But yeah, she's been very supportive, and I think she's appreciated it more and more as time has gone by. And but because she knows it's time consuming. But I'm also probably, for the last 20-something years, I'm not obsessed. If I missed a race, so what? If I don't have success, like I used to, if I had a bad race, I was miserable until the next race. Now, it's pigeon race. I don't take it too serious. You
balanced
success.
it.
Yeah, it doesn't affect my moods or anything like that. I've had a lot of success, and I look back and I said, I've had a lot of success in this sport. I've been blessed. Everybody has bad races, and you move on.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect the family. I know some fanciers, it affects the family. Nobody can go in the yard, or the children can't play in the loft, and whatever, the kids, I don't worry about that stuff anymore.
Like what Robin said. Robin, right? Your wife.
Yes, Robin, yes.
Not because of that damn pigeon. Its action speaks louder than words. Right?
Yeah, no, it's true. You have to, if you have a supportive partner.
Yeah.
And I've always said, like, I have friends where their wives just despise the pigeons.
Okay.
But there's worse hobbies. Your husband's in the yard. You know, he's home. Like his sport, his hobby is there. Where others, there's other things they could be doing when they're off somewhere. My dad was a hunter and a fisherman. He was never home.
Yeah.
Luckily, I liked going with him, so we got to spend a lot of time, mostly with my brother and myself. But my sisters, they were left out.
Okay.
Because the girls, you know, they just didn't even. Maybe they would have liked it, but they didn't really get to go.
I met someone. A wife of the fancier that doesn't really support 100%, but you know, she let him, you know, do the pigeon. She said at least he doesn't spend the money to the bar, getting drunk, you know, those kind of stuff, which is good.
Yeah, no, I think it's good, and if you can involve the family more, and I wish the clubs, at the club level, they would do more events to bring the wives or the spouses in or the children, and you know, which could be helpful. Luckily in my area, there's a lot of events where banquets and things where the women get to know each other. And my wife's friendly with, you know, some of the pigeon wives. And there's not a lot of female fanciers in the sport. There's very few.
Correct.
But it does help to be supported.
So going back to your childhood in Massachusetts, what is the most memorable event? Having the pigeons with your parents, with the club, what is the most memorable thing that had happened to you?
I mean, overall, it was just it was a wonderful experience. We loved going to the club. The club was so much fun.
The meetings.
Yeah, but even like shipping, club, we raced out of the Weymouth Sportsman's Club. Okay. And for many years, and they had, you know, pool tables, and there was a shooting range if we wanted to use it, and the guys every week would get pizza and food, and it was mainly, you know, for the guys. There was a pond out back, so there was a lot of younger kids in the club, and we'd go exploring or fishing, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a good club, and even the club today is the same way. They get along. There's no cliques.
What kind of clock do you have before? Because of course there's no benzing yet that time, right?
Yeah, we had the old, you know, my clock. I still have my original clock, if you can believe it. I left it with my brother, but it was ancient when I got it. It was an old benzene clock, and everybody wrote their name in.
It's already benzene.
Yeah, it was a benzene.
But it's the
wind up, yeah, and it's an old.
So they pioneered also the clocking system.
Yeah, they continued.
They continued to the new generation, which is digital.
Yep.
And I would like to mention Mr. The benzene Seagulls.
Yes.
Ed Minville. You know, he's a really nice guy, fancier. Yeah. So if you want to acquire some benzene, you have to contact Mr.
That's what I use. That's
Ed
what my
Minville.
club uses.
Do you have the M2, M1, M3?
I guess it's the M1, and I just recently got the newest version,
the M3.
M3. Yes.
That can accommodate up to 5,000 birds.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I haven't used it yet. I was a little nervous. I was afraid that my club would have an issue in transferring the birds, but my brother will use it this season.
But whose single fancier would race 5,000 birds?
Oh, I know. Good for the one-off races. But yeah, the clocks have come a long way. It was exciting trying to get the bird in and take off the counter mark and put it in the capsule. But the birds would get, you know, trap shy. Like every time they come home from a race, they know you're going to be pulling on their leg, and we had the speed traps where they would drop in from the outside, and they would get stuck, and you could take the counter mark off and clock the bird. But the good ones would catch on.
How many miles? What's the farthest race that you've been, you know, the club race?
Well, we race, we're 608 miles is our longest race, which is, you know, a heck of a race. But when I was a kid, we had a 700-mile race. It was like a special race. It was like a two-bird derby 700-mile race.
So that's the longest 700?
That's the longest I've ever raced. And I was second in that race, you know, as a kid years ago. But we raced 600 miles in our combine.
What strain that you used with that one?
You know, it was... a local fancier who bought good birds. It was a red checker. I'm not sure of the bloodlines at that time. Yeah, it was just one of my old. This was in the 70s. It was before I really fell into those Fabry pigeons.
Okay, get into the pedigrees kind of stuff and everything. And did you that's the one that you kept the bloodline, right? of that red check?
No, not that pigeon. The mealy,
one.
the Imbreck, the old Imbreck cock, I still have that bloodline in my loft. And the Fabry birds, there's still some of that. They're mixed in. Like, people contact me for Fabry birds, but I mean, I had the pigeon in the 70s. You know, there's no real such thing as...
Did you inbred them so that you keep the bloodline?
Yeah, well, what I did with the Fabry birds, originally, early on, I started inbreeding them.
Okay.
Because I thought, like everybody said, you know, you got this hen one, this brother one, and put them together, and they were terrible. The inbred ones didn't breed, they didn't race, like, so I stopped inbreeding the Fabry birds. The crossed ones bred winners, and so early on I had to stop all inbreeding of the Fabry birds.
Because I know someone, Craig Nidiver of Texas, I think you know him.
Yeah.
Craig Nidiver, he kept the bloodline for more than 40 years of the Jamal Jansen, but he mentioned that he doesn't raise the Jamal itself, but he crossbreed it, and the crossbred, that's the one that he raised.
I see.
So, I mean, inbred, there are people who raise the inbred birds, but ideally...
Yeah, now I do, the only family I really worry about keeping straight would be I have the Steph Van Riet family. They're a sprint family. I've had them since like 91, I got the first one, so what are we going back? Is that... It's a long time, 30-something years, right? 35 years, 33 years. They're still straight. And mainly because everybody wants them straight. Nobody wants a cross. For selling purposes, for commercial reasons, they want straight. But they take the inbreeding. Like they you know, I mix them in with my other families, and they're terrific. And even if if people get a pair and they'll breed them together, they'll still win. So some families can take the inbreeding better than others. Others, don't at all. But this family does, and I've kept them straight now for 30-something years.
So for all those fanciers who started not acquiring or inheriting the sport from their parents, we have our mentors, right? Who is the first mentor that you consider that you have?
Yeah, that's easy. When I just got the pigeons, I just got my first pigeons, I was visiting my cousin, who was like one of my best friends. And he lived one town over, and we went with the family, and I told him I've got these, homing pigeons. I was all excited. He goes, oh, there's a guy in my neighborhood that, I see his pigeons circling, and he could see his pigeon loft, and he goes, I'll show you. So he showed me where he lived. He was only, 3 streets away. So my father, myself, my brother, we took a walk over, and we walked into his yard, and out comes Vin Sharafa.
Okay.
He still, I swear he looks the same today. He had his, it was cold, he had his, his cap on and his old pigeon coat. And he welcomed us, and I met him, and he became my mentor as a kid.
Okay.
Vin Sharafa. He still races today, still a top fancier. He's early 80s.
Okay.
I thought he was old at the time, so I was...
When we were young, we looked to other people like, he's old.
He was 30 and I was 10. I thought he was old, so it's kind of funny. And but he was my mentor. And then I went to an auction in 1974, the fall of 74. And it was a Van Hee auction at the Rhode Island Race and Pigeon Club. And my father, we went down, and Tony Malucci was the auctioneer. And I'm standing on the side, and I'm watching Tony sell these birds, and they were selling for like $200 each.
And that's big already.
$175, and I'm there like, this is crazy. Imagine paying $200 for a pigeon. And they're selling these imports. And at the end of the auction, he walked down, Tony, and he introduced himself, and he was so nice. And I'm thinking, I was just a young kid. I mean, at the auction, he said, you want to come to my lofts and see my birds? So I was excited. So Tony brought us over, and it was always struck me that his lofts were very clean. They were very spotless. But he went in with a scraper, and he cleared a section of floor, the 10 droppings, so we could stand without standing on droppings. And he started showing us the pigeons. And we became friends. He befriended me as a boy. And then fast forward into the late 80s, as we remained friends, and then he started taking me to Belgium. And that's when I was like, wow.
That's nice.
And I didn't realize at the time how famous and how good he was. Like Tony's the best pigeon fancier I've ever met.
Okay.
Tony Malucci. I've been around them all.
Yeah.
And Tony's the one guy where he could walk into a room with the best Europeans, the best Belgian fanciers, the most famous names in the sport, and they were all asking him questions.
Nice.
When you travel with him. And he would sit there and he would give advice. And many of the fanciers that we know today are famous because of his help. The guy was brilliant pigeon fancier. So that's when, you know, I met Tony. So early on it was Vin. Later on it was Tony Malucci. Traveling and spending time with Tony Malucci and asking. Now, Tony would never offer information up. If you asked him a direct question, he would answer it, but he wouldn't give you the keys to the castle just being around him. You know, he's not, because he was still a very competitive guy. And we raced in different combines. I raced in the Boston Concourse, which had, you know, 2,500 birds a week, and he raced in the Southern New England Combine, which had about the same numbers. And on New England Open races, 3 or 4 times a year, we would compete head to head.
So reading this, like the saying, while making conversation with him, interact with him, the information he will not give the key directly, but reading between the line.
You read between the lines, but if you asked him directly a question, you know, specific, he'll tell you the answer.
Okay.
But he isn't going to tell you what he's doing or the real, you know, I mean, the guy was a master.
It's common because, you know, we have our own recipe with our cooking, something like that.
Yeah, no, and it's true. But what's been different with me, and it's something Tony said also 30, 40 years ago. He said, you could tell everyone everything and they won't believe you.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny because when I started my YouTube channel, I tell everything I do. Every thought, everything I do, if I think it's beneficial, I will tell it. My competitors know it, you know it, everybody knows it. And I still feel, people say to me all the time, I don't believe you don't medicate the birds. There's no way you don't medicate your race team. I'm there like, I don't flock treat the birds. I haven't flock treated in whatever since 2013. My birds race and breed antibiotic free. They've done it for years. They race at the top year after year after year. No meds. And there's still my competitors and people will be like, I don't believe it. Well, you're the only one that can do it. Average person can't do it. I'm thinking it can be done.
Yeah.
You just, you know, you have to take the lumps getting there. The first couple years might be ugly, but then after that, the weak ones, the sickly ones, those genetics come out of the population. Like all the weakness comes out of my population. So.
Well, what I've learned with my interviews, you know, visiting Loft, visiting the fanciers, the OLR, is that we do things differently. Yeah. I do not disagree for what you said. I do not disagree with what he said. If it doesn't match for what you said, for what he's saying, I'm not gonna say like, well, he said this and you're saying this, because we do things differently.
And that's exactly right. There's a million roads to Rome, as they say, or whatever, because the way I feed and I tell, it works for me. Like, I don't train the birds much and I want to be competitive. So I have to feed them correctly. And now, another person could just fill the feeders with the richest feeds possible, maybe train them like crazy and have success. With me, I don't train them very much. I feed a specific way and I have success. There's a lot of ways to success. Guys that medicate have success. Some of the most famous people in the world medicate the breeders before breeding, treat before the race team. Now, I worm my birds, I vaccinate the birds. But I've come to the point where I said, if they're weak, I want them to show themselves. If they can't stay healthy naturally, because, you know, what did they do the first million years? There was nobody medicating these pigeons forever. And even up to when I started the sport, nobody medicated their birds in the 70s. You may have wormed them with something called pepazine, which was useless. And there was Emtril, the canker meds, and there was a coccidiosis medication, but it was maybe once a year somebody would give something. It wasn't like it turned in the 90s. I saw it in Europe when we started going over there, that they were treating for respiratory, treating for cancer, using all that, and then they were using drugs to get, not drugs, antibiotics to get a boost before a race, you know. So, and it went too far. It just, everybody, it just got crazy.
So let us talk about, how do you pick your birds, like the bird that you're going to acquire as your stock loft? Of course, the bird that you're going to pick is not the one you're going to race.
Right.
It's going to be your stock bird. So what are the things that you consider?
Well, the first thing is performance. I want to see generations of winners. Like, I'm not too excited about a bird that, like, one bird that does super in a family, but there's not a lot of winners. I want to see uncles winning, cousins, you know, all grandparents, like a lot of winners throughout the family. That's the first thing that I look for. Then I also look, there's some great handlers out there. There's fanciers in Belgium that I wouldn't buy from because they're such great handlers. Like, they're professionals. They would win with anything. So I want to see, are other people winning with these pigeons? Because if they're winning for you and they're winning for this person over there, and there might be something to it. So I look for a lot of winners in the family. I look if somebody else is winning with the pigeons. And then the pigeon itself, I like to buy as close to the champion as possible. Not everybody can buy a child of the superstar, but you might be able to buy a grandchild or from his brother that was pretty good, or you want to get as close to the champion as you can. And then ultimately, if I can select them myself, every champion bird has super soft, supple, silky feather. Great feather and super buoyancy, no weight. If you select pigeons with great feather, with no weight, even like in the winter and off season, if they're nice and corky and buoyant, those are the best pigeons. So you can put the odds in your favor.
Also, they are considering about touching the breast, right? What do you call that? That's the breast part, right? Yeah. Or the meat there should be, the muscle should be soft also.
Yeah, it's funny that my pigeons, now there's birds that are muscular and strong and all that, but when I ship my pigeons, birds that have been winning for me, they're buoyant, they're corky, and there's not a lot of meat on them. Like, you don't handle like all this muscle. There's nothing there. The muscle lies flat. So I don't put too much into the breast muscle, because I have pigeons flying all day in the headwinds, winning at 12 hours and stuff, and they were light and buoyant and light as a piece of paper going to the race. They're almost weightless, like a piece of cork. So those pigeons are the most beneficial pigeons to breed from. A lot of character, strong. I also like a bird that's flexible. Like, you hold it, it's kind of wiggling around. They call them the ringers in Belgium, but a bird that you don't want it to feel like it's carved out of stone, real stiff, because when a pigeon is flying, the body is doing this, the tail, the rudder, they're not just like an airplane. It's hours of this. Like, they're maneuvering the wind over and over.
So they need to have a strong back.
Yeah, but flexible back. Like, I don't want a back to, a tail to come up and hit me, but I don't like a strong, like a lobster tail back, like those real wide, thick backs. It's too much. They don't need it. I like a strong back, but also a flexible back, because the tail is doing this for hours and hours on end. If it's real stiff, I think more of a sprint pigeon you can get away with more stiffness, but a bird for hours on the wing, I think you need more flexibility.
So do you consider those one pin tail, those kind of stuff?
That's a show quality. Like I talk about, one pin tail. I like a tail to come straight off the back, like come taper down to maybe, this wide or so, not like not one really feather, like not where it dips in and it's just like looks like one feather. That again is more show. Most of the people that select pigeons are selecting for show quality. Like they're looking for, like if they were in a cage. But some of the most beautiful pigeons you'll ever see are those show homers that you go to like Blackpool, England. They're amazing. You touch them, they're incredible, but they can't fly from here to there. So mainly racing qualities, flexible, buoyant, super feather. That's much more important.
How about the wings?
If the only thing I worry about the wings is it proportioned for the body.
Okay.
Some birds, the wings are a little short. And, I want to, if anything, a little longer wing. I don't like shorter wings, but you can't select by the wing.
So when we are holding the bird, how can we tell if it is proportioned or not?
Well, that's a good question because I've been lucky to look at a million birds.
Okay.
For me, I just can, between holding the bird and opening the wing, it looks proportioned. I have to do a study on that and maybe see where the wing comes on the tail, although some birds have longer tails and the wing may not, it may look like it's not in proportion. That's a good question. I think just with some experience, if anything, go for a wing that's a little longer than a little shorter.
Yes.
If it's possible.
Okay. And then how about the eye signs?
Now, when I was a kid, everybody was into the eye sign. They all figured they could, select by eye sign. And again, I like rich colored eyes. I like a lot of color and a lot of different, piling, like looking at a mountain range. But you can't select by eye sign.
There are people who consider about pairing the breeders, pearl eye to the yellow eye.
If you're going to do one thing, that's a good thing. Because if you breed pearl eye to pearl eye and they're not real rich, heavily colored pearl eyes, they get weaker. They get whiter and whiter. So you have to be careful with pearl eye on pearl eye. There's been a lot of champions bred from two pearls, but they have to be rich colored eyes.
Okay.
And I think just for normal breeding, opposite eye colors, pearl to yellow, or yellow to yellow, yellow to red, but you can breed those red eyes together. But if you can, breed a pearl to another. Over the years, when I was a kid, the birds were the cock birds were much bolder, big wattles, bigger heads, much more bone. Now, all the top racers, even the cocks look like hens.
Yes,
like they've
correct.
become more streamlined. Like I've seen this evolution in 50 years where you have a tough time telling the sexes apart. When I was a kid, you didn't have any problem because the boys looked like boys and the girls looked like girls. Now it's not a big deal.
In the Philippines, when I was growing up there, having pigeons, the bigger the wattle of the bird is like, oh, that's the racing pigeon.
It's funny because I had a person visit me not that long ago and he wanted big wattled pigeons even on the hens. That's what he was looking for. I mean, they're older birds, but not really the younger type. The younger birds aren't going to have big wattles. And again, though, I think the evolution of the birds, very few have the big wattles nowadays. When I was a kid, all the older birds had these big, all the boys had these big wattles. So not so much anymore.
Imagine the Scion bird. Because I have one, retired Chief U.S. Air Force Jason Sarret, he gifted me a Scion, and the wattle of that bird is humongous. Because I think that's one of the characteristic of the Scion birds.
Oh yeah, that's when I was a kid.
And they're big.
Yeah, they were big, and they had the big wattle and good homing pigeon. Like they're no speed usually, but they
long
come
distance.
home. Yeah, they're a plugger. They just keep coming. Whereas the races keep getting faster and faster. And even today, when I was a kid, if you got 500-mile and 600-mile day birds, it was rare. Now, my birds will fly 12 hours at 500 miles, the first bird, and they'll pour it in. They've just flown 12, 13 hours. You're getting one after the other. So we didn't see that years ago.
So are you particular with the color of the bird?
Yes and no. Like, if they're good, I don't care about the color, but I want them to blend in. Okay. I want them with all the hawks and all the things we have going on, mainly the hawks and the falcons. I want them to be blues and blue checkers and dark checkers, because when a bird of prey attacks a flock, it has to single out one pigeon. It just doesn't attack a flock. It singles out a bird, and it singles out whatever's different. If it has a broken flight, if it's a white one, if you had all white ones and one blue one, the falcon will single out the blue one.
Correct.
So ultimately, you're better off with solid colored blues and blue checkers if you're going to race and one loft racing and all that. You want them to blend in.
Because I know someone, Bill Miller of Bull Verde. I think you know him. He's one of the famous fancier in San Antonio. Yeah. He is particular with the color, and he keeps as much as possible only blue.
Yeah.
And I asked him, why blue? Well, those are the winning birds. And just to prove that I am a subscriber of Mr. Frank McLaughlin's YouTube channel, I watched one of your episodes you discuss about the color of the nails.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that?
Okay, well, as you know, I
know some people react with that.
Yeah, I've done about, I think it's like 140 videos at this point. And I have a whole bunch more in my head that I'm going to get to soon. And then I do my live streams, which is fun. But when I was a kid, my old Imbrek cock was a mealy cock. Now, I noticed everything because I live with the birds. He had all white toenails.
Okay.
I had a red check breeder that was a good breeder. Before I fell into the Fabry bird, he had all white toenails. And most of my birds, all the solid colored pigeons, had black toenails. And then I was reading in the book, The Elite, because at the time, most of us didn't have the internet. All the young people can't imagine having to buy pigeon books. I bought every pigeon book that was ever published. I was reading in this book called The Elite, which I kept. I gave away almost all my books with my move, but I kept The Elite. Gomer Verbruggen, who was one of the most famous fanciers in Belgium, in the 80s wrote that pigeons with one or more white toenails on a solid colored bird are going to be a better racer or flyer. And I was like, wow, I've noticed that myself. That my best breeders and some of my superstar racers, solid colored bird, though, no white ticks, no white feathers, a solid colored bird with white toenails. And you don't see many of them completely solid colored. So I thought about it, and then I visited him probably around the early 90s. I visited him a couple times with my friend Tim Atkin from England. And I asked him. And he showed me the Teen and the Kletzkopf and his famous pigeons, white toenails. And he wasn't sure what the reasoning is, but you look at Forrest Gump and these famous breeders, more often than not, and I'll use the Wolverine at Mike Gannis's, all white toenails. Probably one of the greatest breeders in America of the last, 20 years or so. There's something to it. And I have fanciers now selecting, all things being equal, if you're trying to pick between two brothers, and I did this at Robert Venus's, I was picking he had a famous pair, and I called the bird the Venus cock. I had two brothers, they were identical, blue checkers, beautiful. One had all white toenails. I grabbed that one with all white toenails, and he went on to be a superstar breeder. Not sure why, but it's another thing you can use. And again, don't select a dud because it has white toenails over a son of a champion with black toenails. My best breeding hen is a 2013 hen, all black toenails.
All black toenails.
Her daughter, which won the Big Andy race, bred the Hoosier winner, has generations of champions from her now. Her daughter, 23, all white toenails.
But as much as possible, you don't pick a bird that is mixed, like white and black toenail.
No, white is fine. Even one white toenail.
Okay.
If you have a choice, sometimes it's hard to make a decision. You're like looking at two birds. You got two blue bars. They're two brothers, say, are two equally well-bred pigeons. And you can't pick the one with the white toenail or all white toenails. One white toenail is good too. I'm not sure exactly why.
What's the story behind that, right?
Yeah, no one's really been able to answer it, but if you look through, now you can't look at pictures on, say, a website, because what the photographers do is they take the photo and then it's like cloning. They have a certain cutout, and then they'll use feet from another bird, and then they'll put the band on. So today's photos, no, you can't look. But if you look back maybe photos from 30 years ago where it was actually the pigeon in a box. I also found that many of the fanciers, they don't really you know, they don't know the difference. They let a pretty picture. Like my dad, he would see the pictures on the internet. He loved looking at pedigrees. He never touched the birds, never looked at the birds, but he would like the pictures and the pedigrees, and I'd buy him a pigeon, and the pigeon would come and I'd show him, but he didn't know the difference. He had the nice picture and the pedigree, and that's what most people go by.
So, keeping the birds healthy.
Yes.
So, what are the things that you consider? Do you vaccinate? Do you medicate? Those kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the big thing is vaccinations.
Okay.
I vaccinate, at weaning, I vaccinate for PMV, usually a combination vaccine, whether it's PMV rotavirus, PMV Circo adenovirus, PMV salmonella bronchial, it's a respiratory thing. So at weaning, every bird gets a PMV with something. And then I also pigeon pox every bird at weaning. I just mix it up. And in my videos, like you can mix up the pox vaccine a little at a time. I put it in a syringe and I just put a little microscopic droplet. I'll pull the skin out and slide it through the leg. And it gets like a little BB take. So all my birds are weaned, vaccinated for PMV and pox. Very important.
When is the perfect time to vaccinate for example, squab? When is the perfect time?
Me personally, I like to vaccinate right at weaning, in there close to 28 days old. Everybody has been advocating vaccinating in the nest, but they still have a lot of the parental immunity going on when they're babies. Like some people are vaccinating, I think, too young. I think it's better off. The parental immunity starts to wear off. They're getting from the milk, they get from the egg. So at weaning, I think it's best to vaccinate around then for the first time. And they do need a booster. So a lot of times, 3 weeks later, I'll follow up with a booster. Now, some of the vets in Belgium say if you vaccinate for PMV within 2 weeks of each other, you'll hurt the bird. So I'm always nervous about vaccinating too close, especially sending to one Loft races. So what I've been doing is I've been vaccinating, waiting 3 weeks, sending them to the races and let them get another booster there. Just so we don't, like if I vaccinated them a second time, then they go to the race and they're vaccinating them 3 or 4 or 5 days later, it might not be good.
Yeah, good thing you mentioned about that, sending the birds to the one Loft race, because they also do their own vaccinations. And we don't want to overdose the birds.
Yeah, I think it's best to send them a little older to the one Loft races, like not before 6 weeks old. Everybody's, they're not going to be able to settle, and they'll settle. These lofts sit in the middle of nowhere. They're with hundreds of other pigeons. They're not going to leave. So you're better off sending them at least 6 weeks old and where their vaccines have been in them at least 2 weeks before they go to the one Loft races. And then people say, why do you pox them? The pox is going to spread amongst the other birds. I'm poxing them because somebody else is poxing them.
Of course.
And when I received birds for when I used to export to the South African $1 million race, a lot of birds would come poxed. And then that pox would spread through all my late breds, all my youngsters, everything that wasn't vaccinated. So now I vaccinate to prevent that.
Because pox vaccine is an active virus that, like for us, we have our vaccination, and that's a kind of immunization that is an active virus, so that when the virus comes to us or to the birds, they already have it. The body will say, I have it already, don't come.
They only have to get it one time in their life. Like once they're vaccinated for pox, that's it. And going back to the vaccines, a little secret that I haven't talked about because it's a live vaccine. The Lasorda vaccine, some of the supply houses sell it. It's a Newcastle vaccine, more or less for chickens. It has a short-term immunity for the birds. And it costs like $5 for a vial.
So they can get that from the poultry supply?
Well, you can get it from the pigeon supply house, the Lasorda. But what I do is I keep that on hand. And what I used to do for the one Loft birds that I was exporting, I would vaccinate them on arrival, but that live vaccine kicks in really quick. So I would take 2 vials of the Lasorda vaccine, put it in a gallon of distilled water,
Okay.
a sprayer, a clean sprayer, and then I would go in the lofts and mist all the birds.
Okay.
Hit them in the eyes, hit them in the nose. So I would give them the live vaccine.
Okay.
And it was like one of my little secrets from keeping the birds healthy. So you could vaccinate them and get that right in them, get that going. And then I would always do my own birds. I'd do my own pigeons. I'd shoot the babies right in the nest, the little babies.
Yeah.
They'd be spitting, they'd get a mist in their eyes. It doesn't hurt them.
I know the spray you're talking about, the pump one
the little
from Home Depot.
garden spray. And I would just mist the birds. And it's so easy to do, spraying them, and then you get them in their eyes and their face. So I also use that Lasorda vaccine.
Lasorda.
But that's a temporary, quick immunity boost.
Okay.
But it's better off, you got to vaccinate them with.
But those vaccines that Mr. Frank McLaughlin mentioned, you can get those from Siegel's supply, Pigeon supply of Mr. Ed Minville. And the good thing about Mr. Ed Minville, if you have questions, he is so readily to answer those questions.
Which is true with Ed. Being a person in the supply business, he gets asked every health question imaginable. Every time someone has a sickness, they're calling him for advice. So yeah, there's a lot of advice you can get.
And that's a good thing about Mr. Ed Minville, by the way. Anyway, let's talk about how about the feeding process? Because you also club raise.
Yes.
And you do the OLR, and you breed, and people wants to know what are the different feeds that they need to give to their pigeons.
Well, with me, I'm one of the few lofts that actually, I compete with my own birds and have success, and I have success in the one lofts. The feeding for the breeders is not that important.
Okay.
Like, I use a 16%, 16% protein grain mix. I've done a lot of different feeds over the years, but that's like, you want 16% protein.
And also grits, by the way, right?
Excuse me?
You put grits.
Yeah, that's what, well, the most important part are the grits.
Okay.
So you can pretty much, if you're feeding a good grain mix, now I have a feeder full of grain, and I have a feeder full of chicken pellets.
Okay.
They eat very few chicken pellets.
Okay.
They eat maybe 5% chicken pellets, but if they need them, it's there. The feeder grain, the minerals are most important. If you want to raise beautiful babies, you need, the grit and redstone, you need the Belgian pink minerals, the brown mineral blocks, the pink natural vitamineral. In a couple of my videos, I highlight what I use and what's there. Everybody right now in the sport is using like the Givardi, the mixed mineral grits. But all that is all the other minerals I'm using separately, mixed together, and then they throw in a lot of small seeds. The birds eat it like crazy.
Yes.
They're picking the treat seeds. So that there alone caused them to eat it. But the minerals for raising quality babies and not hurting the breeders, the minerals are the most important part. They're much more important than the actual grain that you're feeding the birds.
So with the breeders, yes, it's important to give the proteins and everything like that. But for you, you are focusing on the minerals that you give to them, right?
Yeah, the grains are in front of the birds at all times. They have all they can eat. My breeding pigeons, they can eat whenever they want. So that, it's there.
Okay.
The minerals, because the minerals are in front of them at all time, I can start breeding in January, breed right through the heat of the summer, and my breeders will never break down. They molt through the breeding season, they don't lose body weight. It's when they start getting mineral deficient, you're going to have sickness, the babies start getting scrawny, there'll be, wetness in the nest. So the minerals are more important than actually what you're feeding the pigeons.
So how do you prepare the breeders? Of course, you're not going to pair them right away. And the ideal pairing I learned from Mr. Vern Clausen in Texas. He's a 94 years old fancier.
Wow.
And he mentioned that just right after the Thanksgiving, that is the time that he will pair. But before doing that, how do you prepare those breeders?
Well, with me, because I don't use any antibiotics before the breeding season, I worm them with moxidectin.
Okay, I use that too.
Yeah, I use the Quest. It's a horse wormer. It comes in a tube, and I'll worm them 2, maybe 3 times in the fall.
Okay.
Maybe 3 weeks apart, and it kills all internal and all external. A lot of the things on the feathers will die also, which is interesting with that product. So I worm them. And then before breeding season, before racing season, I vaccinate them with the PMV, Salmonella, Bronchial. It's a respiratory vaccine. It's a 3-way vaccine. So all my racers and my breeders before the season get the PMV, Bronchial, Salmonella. Now, with me, it's probably best if you vaccinate 2 or 3 weeks before pairing.
Okay.
But I don't want to handle the birds more than I have to. So I vaccinate as I pair them.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be handling birds. So as I'm pairing them, I'm vaccinating the birds. And it's worked just fine.
And you're already boosting them with the grits, right? With the minerals.
Yeah, they've already had. They don't eat a lot of them when the minerals are in front of them all the time during the off season.
Okay.
While they're on eggs, they eat very little. But once the babies are in the nest, they start to
the squabs are there.
Yeah.
It's very important. And then you are going to, let's go to the club racing first, okay? So I have my bird that I'm going to enter for the club race. What are the feeding process that you give them?
Well, with me, I haven't lived at the lofts for 20 years.
Okay.
So I only go in the mornings, and I only spend a few minutes a day with the birds. So I had to develop a system that is very little training, but is mostly feeding. So my birds, they eat during the races season predominantly barley, a good high quality barley in the husk. 75–80% barley. And they only train 2 days a week. They'll go out of the lofts twice a week between races. So they'll fly like 30–35 miles on Tuesday, maybe 50 miles on Thursday, the day before shipping. So my birds, they race on a Saturday, they have 2 loft flies a week, and then they race again. And once the long distance races start, they race on a Saturday, they stay in the loft for over a week, then they exercise Tuesday, Thursday, and then race again long distance on a Saturday. So in a 14-day period, they've had 2 flights.
Okay.
Which, when most people look at it, they can't believe it. But I'm feeding them after they return. They eat all the rich seeds. They eat everything they want. I mix in the fat seeds, all the different types of feeds, let them eat. Then the next day, they go back to the barley mix. Like
how about the
75%.
drinks?
Well, when they return from the race, I use an oregano product, a new biotic. I like it. It's an oregano cinnamon product, and I love it. I promote that product. That's in there, and that's kind of like it's good for the gut. It'll fight anything in the gut that they may have picked up, on the truck. And then I mix in a little bit of honey. I mix in some probiotics and vitamin electrolyte, just a chicken one. I buy it like Tractor Supply.
Do you also do garlic?
I got away from the garlic. I used it years ago. I think it's nothing wrong with it. But for me, I find that it's extra steps. It takes too long. You're better off using the fresh stuff.
Correct.
Either you crush it or I used to, years ago, I would grind it up in the blender and I would pour it in ice cube trays and then have bags of iced garlic and just throw like a cube in the water. But again, it's, when you're single, that's one thing. When you're married and your freezer stinks and the blender stinks and, the garlic is just, it's been too much effort for me.
But the number one is the oregano, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably one of the biggest health benefits we could give the pigeons is the oregano. Now, it has all kinds of antimicrobial effects, but it's positive. Now, what got me into the oregano, in 2004, the fall of 2004, I moved to Oregon. And my dog got sick. And he was, big German Shepherd. He was never sick a minute in his life. And he was up chucking and he had diarrhea. And I thought the dog was going to die. And I didn't have a vet. I didn't have connections out there. So I went to a local vet. And he looked at the dog and he comes out with a tube of oregano paste.
Okay.
And I'm there like, what are you going to do with that? He goes, no, this works better than the antibiotics.
Wow.
I'm there, this dog is so sick. He shot that tube in the dog's mouth. He held his snout, rubbed it down his throat. Within an hour, the dog was better.
Wow.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. So then I started looking into it for the pigeons.
Okay.
So I've been using the oregano for about 20 years.
Nice.
And more recently, I've been using the oregano-cinnamon combination because cinnamon has another effect, like similar to the oregano, but it promotes the the microbiome in the gut. It has a lot of positive effects. So the product that I use, the New Biotic, has been excellent. And but I think that can really help most fanciers, the regular product.
So how about the birds that you're about to send to the One Loft race, about the feeding? How do you prepare them?
Well, my babies, when I wean them, I load up the feeder with everything. I use Versillalaga feed now because I can have it delivered in Massachusetts. I'm not that far from Global Pigeon Supply, so they deliver all my feeds. And there's a lot of great supply houses, but it's just convenient for me. So my babies, I put all the feed they want in front of them. When I wean them, I load the feeder up with small seeds, whatever they want, because a lot of people wean them and want to force them to eat the big grains. And I think it's kind of funny because after a few days, they're eating everything anyways. You don't want to stress them, you know, and let them eat whatever they want when you wean them. So I keep all the feed I want in front of them. And then for the One Loft races, that's pretty much it. All the minerals, all the feed, they've been vaccinated. One thing I like to do, the day before I'm going to ship, I'll feed them light. And then early the morning of shipping, I'll feed them heavy, so they eat. And then they usually go out in the afternoon. So once the feed is in their system, I have a big bulb syringe with a long rubber tube, and I'll fill them up with water as I put them in the baskets. And if they have feed in their system, it just stays in their crop, the water. If they had an empty crop, it goes through them like that. So I'll syringe them all full of water. I don't crowd them in the boxes. I'd rather pay an extra $50 in shipping because you're entering a big money race like the Hoosier. Why try to save 50 and cook your pigeons on the way to the race? I keep them spread out in the boxes and ship them on their way.
What is the ideal age of the bird that you send to the One Loft race?
I don't send them earlier than 6 weeks old. Yeah, you want them to have some immunity from their vaccines. You want them to be able to find a perch. They know where the water is. They can, at least 6 weeks. You could even go older. 2 months is fine. They're not going to lose them. They're less likely to get sick. And but yeah, many send them too young. They think, oh, they're going to lose them settling, but they're not going to lose them.
And there's a saying that different courses, different horses. Do you consider sending birds, like for example, you're going to enter in California, in Texas, up north?
No, I pretty much send the same birds, to, whether it's Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe or Africa Pro or the Hoosier, the same pigeons. But what I do look for, and this is a tip everybody should follow, nearly all the races, the birds are overfed and undertrained. Now, not all of them, but most of the time when you're dealing with thousands of pigeons, there's only so much you can do. So you can't limit feed, you can't control feed. So you want to send pigeons that are medium size and naturally light and buoyant type pigeons. If you're sending heavy or big bone pigeons, now I can race those myself because I can control the body weight with the feed. But in a One Loft race, you can't control that. So better off sending medium size, corky, buoyant type birds because they're going to be overfed.
Of course.
If a bird gets fat, you're going to be in trouble.
Of course, healthy bird, right?
Yeah, no, you want super health. I mean, if it's any kind of minor sickness, don't waste your time.
That is true.
Because, I'll go through my babies and I'll get ones with one eye cold or a little bit of respiratory and, you'll get one with canker here and there. I don't panic, but those birds aren't going to go to a One Loft race.
So for the new fanciers, because believe it or not, that because of my YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, there are fanciers, new fanciers, people who are in dog business, fishing pond, koi, and other kind of like chicken. And they reached out to me. Hey, Romer, can you give me some tips about how to start with this pigeon thing? Because I saw your video and I even can't believe that there is a pigeon racing. I want to get into it. And the funny thing is that I don't send my own video. I send Mr. Frank McLaughlin's videos, your link to them, and I said, learn from this guy.
That's funny. Well, thank you. What has amazed me most about the YouTube channel, I thought I was putting content out for flyers, experienced flyers, or people that are already in the pigeon sport. I can't believe how many people started the pigeon sport because of my videos, and you must have found the same thing. just in my area, 3 local young fanciers joined in the last year because they found my YouTube channel. And I get reports all over the world now that, oh yeah, I've got interested in pigeons from your YouTube channel. And I'm thinking, who would even watch my videos if they weren't already interested in pigeons? But I guess it is the case. I think it's best to, when you start out, get some pigeons, learn how to take care of them. You know, in the beginning, you make a lot of mistakes. You'll lose them training. It's a learning curve, and I try to, like with my videos, I try to make it, you know, answer the questions and make it as easy as possible for fanciers. But yeah, don't invest a lot of money. Don't start out with pigeons just to get experience. It's only a year. Really, I would think after the first year, you have a good understanding of what needs to be done. And then after that, you know, you can buy some pigeons. And there's no need to spend a fortune. I think a lot of people feel they have to spend $1,000 or more to buy a good pigeon. But there's plenty of good pigeons at reasonable prices. And like you say, even on my auction site, there's imports for $200 each. And good pigeons, really good pigeons. And me personally, I would suggest go to a good fancier and buy late breds from either his race team, which is usually the least expensive birds. You can get good pigeons, or off the breeders. But late hatches, they're not very expensive, and you can get really good stock like that.
So, but don't get us wrong. Invest, spend thousands of dollars when you are ready, and you believe that investment will not get to be wasted. Correct. And any other information that our viewers needs to know in regards with our interview?
I mean, I would try to enjoy the sport. Like I love watching the birds fly. Although I can't exercise them very much anymore because I don't live at the lofts, but it's important that you enjoy the pigeons. Enjoy watching them, enjoy them coming home from the races, win or lose. And the biggest advice I would give is congratulate and be a great winner. And congratulate and be a great loser. Like I'm the same, whether win or lose, I'm happy for the winner. And you know, many fanciers, you know, they get upset, but hey, if you beat me, great job, congratulations. And my club is like that. We're always happy for each other. So I think it's better to, you know, give the winners accolades, and if you win yourself, you know, act like you've been there before. You know, like I downplay it. You know, I get lucky. You know, it's my day. You know, but it's, of course, you're excited. But yeah, I think it's good to just think about it. And, you know.
I met someone, and he said that it's not all about the winning. Yes, winning the race is amazing, especially for the club, or should I say, especially with the one Loft race, because there's some money involved. But to be honest, I'm going to be blunt. I am more on club racing, because I'm not, you know, so into the one Loft race, but I'm into the emotional support with the leisure. So he mentioned to me that winning or losing, it doesn't matter. What matters for him is breeding the birds, breeding the pigeons, and taking care of the birds, and see them fly and come back home, and the camaraderie, the friendship, and the network. And can you imagine, I am from San Antonio, Texas, and we drove here so to meet Mr. Frank McLaughlin and other fancier, Mr. Chad Ward. He's a really amazing guy. And later on today, I'm going to be meeting Mr. Manny Rodriguez, right? Manny Rodriguez, Gallo, Loft. And that is the most important thing, the connection. And you can say the same thing, I think so.
Yeah, I think that with this sport, we have friends all over the world. And as a young kid, you never dream the contacts. And everywhere you go, there's pigeon fanciers. And, you know, people are just, they're so nice. And the travel, if you get to the point where you can go to conventions or go to the Hoosier race, and that's quite an event, or I've been lucky to go to South Africa and Zimbabwe, and it's amazing. It's like, what an opportunity the pigeons have, you know, brought myself and my family. They've traveled with me, and I've been really blessed. But there's a lot to the sport, and try to enjoy it. And it's not all about winning and losing. And really, it's just, I mean, if you enjoy them, you're going to win your share, you're going to lose your share, but you're going to lose more than you're going to win. most of the fanciers I talk to, it seems like they've never lost a race in their life, you know. And but you can have a lot more down than up. But if you enjoy the birds, it's the main.
And are you still planning to join the club here in Florida?
Yeah, I'll see where I end up. I will definitely join a club, whether it's the Gulf Coast Homing Pigeon Club or there may be a club in the area. I will be keeping my birds in the Spring Hill area. I'm going to lease some space, but again, I won't live at the loft, so I'll just be able to breed.
So you're going to leave the loft in Massachusetts?
My brother will continue to race.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to do it on his own. He's helped me for years.
Okay.
And he lives on the property where the lofts are. My mother lives there in one house. He lives in the other house. And yep, he's going to race. He'll keep probably half the breeding pigeons. I'll keep half the breeding pigeons because I have fears of if something happened, at least half the pigeons are someplace else. And yeah, we'll continue.
At least your brother learned already from the best.
Yeah.
So, and
well, I'm happy that he gets to do it without me overseeing it, and he can, you know. But of course, I'll help him, and he'll ask all the questions. But he's a good pigeon man. He's only been at it. He's got interested about 15 years ago. After all the years of being around it, he's actually got a good eye for them, and he'll do well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity that you've given to us as a long interview, but very informative. And we hope that we helped, you know, this video can help more fanciers, new fanciers, old fanciers, information and everything like that. Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
it's a pleasure. I hope everybody enjoys it, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yes, sir. When we relocate here, we're going to follow Mr. Frank McLaughlin moving here. No, but, you know, not in Tampa, maybe Lakeland or up in Gainesville.
Well, terrific.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much again, guys, and happy flying.